Hi, friends. This is your pal Scott Garibay, and today we are going to talk about as a game designer, a creator of a tabletop role playing game. It is very important that you do not communicate your intentions or your desires for the game, and that the less you say, the more your game can do. All right, so let's talk about this. All right, so in 2023, the game Apocalypse Keys was released. It was released by Evil Hat Games, and I remember being very distinctly interested in this game as it was being built. And I was like, oh, this all sounds very interesting. So recently, I was in my TTRPG journey, and I was like, oh, Apocalypse Key. I saw it somewhere, and I was like, I remember that. So I was like, okay, right now I am chock full of amazing content. So right now, I have the 2023 core rulebooks for Dungeons and Dragons. I really don't need another game, but I remember distinctly being very, very interested in this game. And so I was like, okay, what happened with that thing? So what I did was I went to Wikipedia to get actually, I found the quick start rules, but the quick start rules did really, it gave all the playbooks. Actually, I just got the playbook PDF, right? And that was going to be a lot of good reading because it has all the archetypes, and that is one thing that's interesting about Powered by the Apocalypse games, and Apocalypse Keys is a Powered by the Apocalypse game, where it's like, oh hey, what is uh what is this about? And the playbooks, if you just read all the different character archetypes, you'll get a good idea of what it's about. But I went to Wikipedia, right? And on Wikipedia, clearly at some point, people had interviewed him about Apocalypse Keys, and and you know what? The creator could be a female. I apologize. It's an international name, and I don't know if it's male or female. And so the creator of the game was interviewed, and so I went and I read, I read the synopsis, right? And I was like, oh my gosh, right? And what it said is, this is a tabletop role playing game where essentially you are playing Hellboy, right? And so Hellboy is this character who is an apocalypse key. He will trigger the end he will trigger the beginning of Ragnarok, the end of all things, right? And so they're like, hey, you are an apocalypse key. You are going to trigger the end of the world, right? And we're going to go through that journey, right? And I'm like, oh my gosh, this game was hard. Are you kidding me? Like, so I'm playing a character who could trigger the end of all things. That's pretty incredible. This game goes hard, right? Like, then I get on Wikipedia and it says XYZ, the name, created this game with emotional safety in mind. And I was like, what? Right? And sure enough, when I open up the playbook, right, first thing, an entire page of safety tools. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, this game has safety tools? If there was ever a game written that anybody who needs safety tools has no business touching a game where you play a creature that is the end of all things, right? It's outlandish, the construction of it. So this game that I thought went hard is completely lit, right? Like, it's just like, what? And so if and it completely, now I have to admit, I'm still reading the archetypes, right? Because I'm interested in the construction of the game, but I will never play this game, and I will certainly never buy it, right? And the reason why is I don't have an interest in some like weak sauce safety tool paddle. It's just, I'm not interested in that, right? If you wanted to make a game about emotional safety, maybe you shouldn't have made Apocalypse Keys, right? Like, if there was ever, and the entire point is, we go to horror, we go to these dark spaces to explore the limits, right? To get close to the edges of what we fear and what worries us, right? Not to produce emotional safety, right? Like, if you want to produce emotional safety, don't talk about the end of all things, right? Like, and it just like, if the creator had kept their intentions about the game to themselves, I would probably be purchasing this game, right? And might be interested in playing it. But it just sapped all interest in me having any desire to play this, right? Because it's like if you show somebody a Jeep, right? You're like, oh, look at the cool knobby tires, you know, and you're like, ooh, I bet that's got a strong engine. And then they go, it's electric, and you're like, oh, man, thanks, next. That sucks, all right? And it's just and so it's very important that creators just seal your flapping ball. Like, you don't need to tell people what your intentions with your game is, and the reason why is that's not up to you, right? You create the game, then you put your game into the world, and you don't tell people what it is. And the reason why is it's their choice what it is. It is your choice to create it, and then the art speaks for itself. When you come in and try to shoehorn your intentions for how the game is to be received, you get in the way of the experience of art, who is to say this is what this is. And if you keep your flapping ball sealed, then your game is 1,000 different things for 1,000 different people. But if you open your flapping ball and inject, right, and take the mystery out and insist this is what this was made for, this was made for emotional safety, right, then you tell me I can't do what I want with this game. I can't explore the edges of horror with an emotional safety tool, right? Like, because anybody who's gonna embrace those emotional safety tools is gonna be soft. They're not gonna be interesting, or they're not going to have a dark edge to them, right? And so they're going to be the most, like, teddy bear clutching. It doesn't work. It's not a good mix, right? And so, and I think that bears out, because Apocalypse Keys was released and disappeared. I heard nothing more about it until 2023, between 2023 and 2025. And I think the reason why was people were like, oh, this is a horror game made for emotional safety. No thanks, right? And so I think it's really important that if you're a creator of a game, it's your job to create the game. It is not your job to tell people what that game is for. That's what the people who buy the game, and this is the other thing that we need to start really realizing in tabletop role-playing games, is that the games are for whatever the people purchase them choose it to be for, not what you intended, right? You, as the creator of the game, whatever your intentions were for the game, right? The game doesn't matter, and even more than that, are harmful to even state, right? Harmful to it being used, harmful to being purchased, harmful to it even existing, right? And at this point, I will probably finish reading the playbooks. But that's it. Like, I don't have any interest in a safety tool buffered horror game, right? That is the most ridiculous, absurd creation I've ever heard of. So at this point, so if you're creating a tabletop role playing game, go ahead, enjoy, create your game, but let the game speak for itself. Don't try to tell people what it's for, right? Every single word you just heard is my humble opinion. Absolutely nothing more, absolutely nothing less. The important part is when I get to hear your humble opinion, when you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider subscribing, and have a fetch millennium.